Hey, teeth lovers. So today I'm going to be talking all about the booty, right? I think that song is Tribe Called Quest. But, anyways, we're going to be talking about why are the glutes so important to having poor posture and preventing injury? But also, how can we build glutes at home? So, I love talking about the glutes. So, today I'll probably run through things pretty quickly because when I get excited, I talk really, really fast and I kind of talk too fast. So, hopefully, you guys can all stay tuned and bear with me. Without further ado, here we go.
Hey there! Welcome to the Lift for Longevity podcast, where our goal is to build our strongest, healthiest body. We all deserve to feel our best, but since we only get one body, we have to make sure to protect it by moving safely and with purpose to prevent pain, injury, and surgery. I'm your host, Brianne, and I'm a fit pro turned business owner and also a girl mom. I'm obsessed with educating and empowering dental pros on how to take care of their body by training efficiently and building the right muscles to prolong their career. I know you're tired of spending time working out but still dealing with annoying aches and pains, getting rid of your pain temporarily only to have it come right back just a few hours later, or feeling like you never have any energy. You wish there was a long-term solution to get rid of your pain for good. Well, I'm here to give you real-life, actionable steps that you can take today to get rid of your pain, say goodbye to quick fixes, and have energy to live a life that you love. So if you're ready to get stronger, enjoy your life outside the operatory, and have longevity in your career, grab yourself a high-protein snack and let's get to it.
So if you've been following me at all, or even if you haven't, I'm sure you could kind of identify the fact that I love muscle. I love muscle so much, you guys. I even have two pit bulls and I just think they're the cutest, sweetest dogs ever. But I just love looking at their muscle because they have so much. But anyways, I do think, a couple of my favorite muscles of all time in the body are going to be the glutes and the hamstrings. So a lot of people are like, oh, I want to build a butt. It looks nice. Or you see these Insta models who are I don't know, 90 pounds and totally skinny. And then they have these huge butts, right? Yeah, it looks great, but they're so practical. So a couple of reasons. So the glutes, they're going to stabilize our pelvis, right? We need first and foremost to have a stable pelvis that's properly aligned. And I have a previous podcast there I talked about this. I think it's episode 2 or 3. So you can check that out. I think it's 3. But they also help prevent injury. So again, I talk all the time about how everything's connected, right? If our ankle mobility is off, it's going to trickle up to our knee, into our hip, and vice versa, right? The glutes helps keep our hips healthy, right? And our ankles and our knees, and everything's connected, right? So an example of this that I see a lot when I'm doing my movement assessments with hygienists is, I would say 50% of the time, I see a hell of a lot of knee instability, right? This is a problem because a lot of these people, they're already working out on their own like this, whether it's lunges or things just make me eek because it's like they're going to crack at any second, right? So anyways, the first part about that I want to talk about is a lot of times when those knees go in, it could be a lot of things, but a lot of times when we strengthen the abductors, the outer portion of the glutes, the medial, that's going to help with that. So they're a knee stabilizer, right? So that's one thing that I just want to note because I see it all the time. Again, like I said. Now, the other thing I see a lot too, and I've talked about, is that anterior pelvic tilt where our glutes are just weak. Our glutes are weak. Our core is weak, right? We have to make sure and strengthen them and build them up so that we have, a nice, tall, standing position posture where everything is aligned. And whether you even have an anterior pelvic tilt or not, most people are pretty weak. Their glutes are just underactive, right? Their glutes and their hamstrings. So I have a huge emphasis on both of these muscle groups in my program because they're just simply underactive. There's no other way to put it. And that's a problem, right? So a couple things we can do. So basically, there's 3 muscles that make up our glutes, right? We got the maximus, the medius, and the minimus, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to squat and get a big butt. Cool. Squats are great. But hygienists have so many imbalances that their squats are half the time just poorly executed. I know I've said that before, but it's the truth. But also we have to make sure that we're doing a lot of pulling motions. So, I'm sure you've all heard deadlifts, right? Hip thrusts, things like that. But essentially, You want to make sure that you're able to get like full hip extension all the time to build our glutes. So hopefully I'm not getting too far ahead of you, but basically I'll give you an example of that as like a glute bridge. I know it sounds so simple, but like I see it all the time where people, they either overextend, right? And they're squeezing too much. They're putting tension on their low back, or they're not squeezing enough, right? So you shouldn't feel your low back at a glute bridge. You should just feel your glutes. Or like a hip thrust. So, a lot of people like to lift really, really heavy. I'm one of them and they're great. But like, I have, even myself, when I've done like a single leg hip thrust on a bench or whatever type of equipment you're using with zero weight, and it's like, holy shit, like these are no joke because you're isolating that muscle so much, even without weight. It's just crazy how challenging it can be. So there's a couple of examples. And again, this is minimal equipment, right? My clients that work out at home, they don't have a whole lot of equipment. I mean, some of them do, but it's just not necessary, right? So I would say, back to alluding to my hip extension, the thrusts, and the bridges, basically you want to make sure that you are obviously picking the proper exercises, right? And executing them properly. But I also want to talk about like unilateral movements, right? Like single leg, like I just mentioned, the single leg RDL, for example, or the hip thrust that I mentioned earlier. Like basically, we're all one side dominant. Like everybody, I don't care who you are, even Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? It's just the way our bodies are put together. And so by working, in a different pattern, like a lateral versus a bilateral, then basically you're forcing that muscle to have to work hard, right? Say, for example, like my right side's stronger. If I'm going to deadlift, a lot of times my right side's going to kind of compensate or work, work harder, right? And the left side's going to kind of like take it easy. So basically, that's why I do a lot of single leg work, because that left muscle is like forced to be like turned on and engaged and, working throughout the entire repetition. So I would definitely suggest incorporating those two. And then lateral movements, like most people's medius is so weak, like that side butt, the hip abductors, right? A lot of programs, they like do squats and like, all the sagittal plane movements. They're always doing the same stuff. And they always like neglect like the transverse plane or any lateral movements in general. They are challenging. And I would say, maybe there's a higher chance of injury just because people don't do them. That's why. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of working in different planes, right? So lateral movements like all day, every day. And then the last thing I want to note is just being cognizant of, slowing things down, because I know a lot of people, they just rush through things. I see it all the time. I'm like, let me see your squats. And then they do like 2 in like a second. And I'm like, slow it down. Like there's no rush. So what I'm getting at here is what's known as time under tension, right? Our muscles need to work, right? So the longer that muscle is under tension, right? So think of like the eccentric portion, if you're familiar with that, or the negative, right? Say you do a pull-up, right? And then you slowly lower yourself down for like 5 seconds. That's an example of eccentric portion of the movement when you are, that muscle is having to work harder because you're slowing it down, more time under tension, right? So basically the reason for this too is because like gravity, right? If you're going to squat, you're rushing down and up in a second, gravity is helping you, right? So your body's not even really actually working that hard. So when you slow down the time under tension, that's another reason why, is because you're working against gravity, right? So you're actually working efficiently, right? And smart, and not just going through the motions and training super fast like a little Energizer bunny, which I'm not a fan of. So I really feel like that's all I have to talk about today. Kind of short and sweet, but you want to make sure, again, proper exercise selection was number 1, hip extensions, and execute them, efficiently and the most optimal you can with good form, doing unilateral movements, so any single leg movements, and then working that time under tension. So trying to maximize that. I mean, you don't have to like sit and hold a squat for like 5 minutes or anything like that. I mean, that might help you a little bit with your mobility, but that's a different topic for a different day. So hopefully this was helpful and informative. I do have an equipment list if you're interested in learning what I have to share, what you might need to do this at home. But again, it's not a very whole lot. Most people kind of have everything they need. So if you do have questions, feel free to shoot me a message on DM. My DMs are always open and I respond personally to all of them because I love chatting with my little tooth fairy. So that is all for today, and I will catch you all next week.
Thank you so much for listening in today. I hope you got a takeaway from this episode. And if you did, would you be so kind to share it with another dental pro you think would benefit from it? I know you love learning, and chances are that they do too. Also, I would love to connect with you on Instagram, so go ahead and head over to the Lift for Longevity podcast page or follow me at Built by Brianne. If you shoot me a message saying hello, I will personally respond because I love chatting with dental pros. Before you go, though, I want to let you know that I appreciate you and what you do, and I hope to chat soon. Until next time, stay strong.